ran up a check, I might do it again. Enemies close, have me thinking they're friends. 10 toes down, I'll be free until the end. Crib outside the city, I don't feel safe in my hands. Took so many years, I'm just waiting for the wins. I'm in debt to no one but the one who took my sins. I do it for real, there's no reason to pretend. If I do it once, I do it again. Add it up, bankroll, euro, peso, add it up, I'm just doing me, everything is on me, no you matter what. Add it up, bankroll, euro, peso, add it up, I'm just doing me, everything is on me, oh you matter what. Add it up, told her if it's all me, everything is on me, gon' back it up. Matter what, told you I'ma do me, why you hating on me, it's not adding up. I do roll like a Mack truck, country heart, I might cop a farm and go act up. Lot of scars, I was cold-hearted, now I'm back up. Keep it real, I do this once a month, I don't rap much. I just take the money and go stack up.
What up? Good afternoon, gentlemen, lady. How you doing, Marie? What's going on?
Good evening, gentlemen. How you doing tonight? Hey, Mika, what's up?
I am excited. We got a wonderful show tonight. As always, who are we? We are Ink to Ink, as well as Incarceration to Incorporation. And as always, we want to bring in our partners, OAA, which stands for what, Marie?
Encouragement, empower, and educate. We have to take and empower. That's what we do. We empower, we encourage, and we educate one another. Like having the men on tonight, they're going to help educate us. And we're helping empower one another.
Exactly. Offender Alumni Association, Savannah. We provide a safe space for men and women who are coming home from incarceration, which we call them returning citizens, justice impacted people. And why do we do that? We do that because we believe that stories matters. That's right. Your story matters because that story encourages, it educates, and it empowers us, as well as changing the narrative. Why does the narrative need to be changed? Because there are so many people purporting the lie that when we get out, we automatically go right back into prison. But that is a lie. We are successful, whether it's educationally, organizationally, relationally. We are successful, and that is why we brought these men on tonight to tell us the success of their story. We want to change that narrative and show how our pain has become our purpose. And so without further ado, always want to give shots out to AB and Julius Hall, the brainchild and the platforms that they've given unto us. But let's get ready, Marie. I want you to introduce our guests as we give them an opportunity to tell us who they are first before they start telling us what they do.
Okay, do we, the first person we have is that Mr. Tony Bennett?
Yes.
Is that his name? And I can't see the second guest name, Julius. His name, I can't see it. And I'm so sorry, sir. What is your name, sir?
Chevis Watson.
Mr. Watson. That's the one I want to hear from, Mr. Watson. So, Mr. Watson, I want to welcome you and Mr. Bennett to the show. I know that you all going to have some nice encouraging words and education for the people to give them what they need to hear. And always, thank you to our wonderful guest and our partner of OAA, Mr. Fred Green. He's very encouraging. So I know he's going to have something wonderful to always say to the people. So tonight, I want you to tell us who you are. What is your affiliation to incarceration? And Mr. Bennett, I'm going to start with you first.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tony Bennett, and I originate out of New York City. I was incarcerated at the age of 21, and I returned back into the community at the age of 49. Currently living down in Georgia. I transitioned from New York City and moved to Savannah, Georgia in August of 2022. And I'm currently working for a community-based organization that assists returning citizens with the entitlements and necessities they need to make a successful transition back into the larger society.
Wow. So, Mr. Watson, can you introduce yourself and your affiliation to incarceration, sir?
Absolutely. Peace and blessings to the people that are listening. Peace and blessings to the show host. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. My name is Chevis Watson. I'm live from Austin, Texas tonight. I'm the executive director of Direct Service Agency Working Group 512. We work in a golden triangle between Austin, Houston, and San Antonio. But I'm chasing justice wherever I go. I've got a 17-year history in the criminal justice system since I was a freshman at Baylor University. I was released from prison May 7th, 2020 from the Texas Department of Criminal Justice after I was innocently convicted on February 28th of 2020 in the middle of COVID. And I've seen the ups, I've seen the downs. You know, I get to prison, I wake up one morning, my cellmate is dead. I get back to the county on my way home to catch parole. My cellmate is on an appeal for doing a life sentence for a bag of weed. So I've been there, I've been back, and I'm just grateful to God to be here with y'all, tasting the breath of life, giving all honor and praise to the Most High God. But still emerging from prison. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I wake up and the taste is still on my lips. Sometimes I can't help but think of the brothers that I left. So, you know, I'm glad to be here from Incarceration, Incorporation.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Watson. And Fred, always please introduce yourself, Mr. Green, and tell us your affiliation with Incarceration, sir.
Well, thank you, Marie, and thank you, Julius, and thank you to the two brothers that's on, Brother Tony and Brother Chevis. You know, our affiliation is, our stories are the same, you know, right. And what I like to promote is successful reintegration. You know, oftentimes, like Julius said in the opening, the focus is always on recidivism. But many are the faces and voices of successful reintegration. And that's what this platform is about, changing the narrative, letting society know that people come back from incarceration if they're given the right support and the right supportive services, that they are treated as citizens, then they can fare out later in their lives, and that they can do outstanding things, just like all of us on this call have done. Not only us, just so many people, but we need to collect that data. We need to change that narrative. And I'm so proud of each and every one of us for having the courage to jump out in the ocean and share our stories and turn our pain into purpose.
I love what you said, Fred. I love what you said, Fred. Fred, let me say something, Miko. I love what you said, Fred. Guess what? If we are given the right tools, right? The right tools to flourish, recidivism will change. When you come home from incarceration during time, and that they will take you and treat you like a first-class citizen, things can work accordingly. I love that, Fred.
Yeah.
Okay, Miko, go ahead.
Well, wait a minute, Fred, before you start, because you use the keyword data, and that's what we want to start off. So we're going to talk a little bit about data for you, for Mr. Watson, and also for Mr. Bennett. Tell me, and Fred, you start, and then we'll work our way through. Was your transition back into society a smooth transition or a difficult one? If it was smooth, then tell us why. If it was difficult, then tell us why. You start out with that so we can get some data.
Well, I was released 24 years ago. It's been 24 years for me. Mm-hmm. And it was very difficult. The restorative and for everybody out there, I'm from Savannah, Georgia. So Cheatham County, it was very difficult to get employment. During the time when I was out, people that had felony charges couldn't get food stamps. They couldn't apply for FAFSA. So I always tell the story about, man, I had to lie on every application I came across, you know. Mm-hmm. So it was very difficult, you know, and my hopes was that I became so important on a job that they wouldn't let me go, which was such the case when I was in food and beverage working for Chili's for 8 years. Now, my manager found out and told me I was so important. He said, just redo the application. We can't lose you. So, you know, I had to, and then as slowly the restorative justice needle started moving to where the Ban the Box initiative came through. And then shout out to all of us and none of us out of Oakland who passed that legislation, that law. And then they started opening up under the Georgia reentry initiative through DEAL, started to do some things in Georgia as it relates to helping those that are directly impacted, those that are justice system impacted, be able to get the tools and utilize the tools that were already there. We just weren't able to use them. And so, so it was very difficult.
All right, Mr. Bennett, was your transition a smooth one or a difficult one?
My transition was difficult initially because I entered prison in 1984 and I was released in 2011. So I walked out into a society that was had transitioned to a proportion that I was ill-equipped for. Although inside, you try to take the steps to acclimate yourself with technological changes and, just overall, the differences in the decades that I was in prison. When I was released, it was a challenge. I didn't know how to use a computer. I didn't know how to swipe a Metro card to get on the bus. So I had to have somebody assist me in the process to show me. I didn't know what a debit card was. And I recall I was riding the city bus in New York and I seen people, they had these things in their ears and they were talking. And I started drawing back because I was thinking that they were hearing aids and all these people on the buses, they were crazy. So when I got off the bus, I called my brother, hey, man, these people, man, they're letting them out of the mental asylum. They got all these plugs in their ears and they laughing and talking. And my brother had to tell me that those were Bluetooths. I didn't know that they were Bluetooths. I thought they were hearing aids because that's what people had in their ears when I went to prison in 1984. So I got out in 2011 and I was fortunate enough to, encounter people that were sympathetic and they understood, they empathized with the period of time that I was incarcerated. And I went to a public library and I asked the lady there, could she help me, teach me how to use a computer? And I explained to her my situation. And she told me that you have to invest in your freedom. She said, if you want to learn to use a computer, you have to come here every day at 12 o'clock and I will show you. So that was the first act of motivation for me. I would go to the public library every day and she taught me the nuances of Microsoft Word and Chrome, and she taught me how to attach something to an email. And I thought that was one of the greatest accomplishments that I made at that time. I left the library and I was like excited. I was like, yeah, I'm ready, man. I can do that. But I also found out that society did not embrace you. They did not care if you did 25 or 28 or 5 or 10 years. They just wasn't, concerned about you and your situation. And I recall that I could not get employment. And I was under a life parole sentence. And I went to see my parole officer this particular day. She was not in because they informed me that she was in a car accident. And I saw 2 people walk in the back and they walked out real quick. And when I walked in to speak with a parole officer, she said, you want a job? I said, yeah. She said, well, they got a program. Hold up. What's going on here?
We hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, yeah, they have a program that is designed for guys that are returning back in the community from long-term incarceration. And the program was called the Doe Fund in Brooklyn, New York. And I was accepted in the program. My first act of returning back in the community and making a contribution, I was sweeping the streets of New York City. I had a dustpan and a broom, and I would walk up and down Manhattan and I would sweep the streets. And people would encourage me. One brother told me that broom and that dustpan is the vehicle to your success. He said, you just have to be committed to doing the work that you need to do to change, brother. And that was the encouragement that I received. The return was not easy, but I was able to learn from people that God put in my path. He put in my path to assist me in the process. And that's how I was able to, successfully transition to an extent.
Awesome story. Oh my goodness. And we're going to definitely get into the part 2 of that. What about you, Mr. Watson? Was your transition a smooth one or a difficult? And if so, tell us why.
I'd say that my transition was filled with turbulence. I'd entered the criminal justice system this last time with some information, right? I kind of came to prison almost make ready. I had known that Angela Davis said that jails and prisons are designed to break human beings, to convert the population into specimens in a zoo, obedient to our keepers, but dangerous to each other. I remember when I got through diagnostics in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice in Huntsville, Texas. I get to the unit, and it's 60 guys on the verge of chaos. An old guy came to me. He said, "Brother, you got smart eyes." He said, prison is like hot water, and you got 3 choices in hot water. He said, you could be a carrot. And what does a carrot do in hot water? I'm looking at him like, man, what are you talking about? He said, look, brother, a carrot shrivels in hot water. You can go back to everything you knew, a shell of yourself. I said, man, that ain't what I'm trying to do. He said, you could be an egg in hot water. He said, what does an egg do? He saw me thinking. He said, brother, you got smart eyes, but you hesitating. He said, an egg hardens in hot water. He said, you could harden your heart in here, like 90% of these brothers, and go back to everything you knew, all hardened up, not able to feel, not able to relate. He said, or you could be a coffee bean in hot water. I had a stick of coffee in my pocket. He said, what a coffee bean do in hot water? I said, man, make a good cup of coffee. He said, brother, you can transform and be that coffee bean and make a good cup of coffee out yourself. So during my path to prison in 2019, I did 378 days total. I became an inmate lawyer and worked on 515 cases in 378 days, helping up 100 men gain their release.
Wow.
So when I was coming home, I was ready to get to work, but I had paroled to, a woman at the time who had a lot of toxicity. So I'd come back to a toxic environment, and I didn't know emotional intelligence. I wasn't thinking emotional intelligence back then. I wasn't thinking just settle the pace and hear this woman out. I was thinking, man, I did all that time on the yard. I got to get out of here because I got to put me first. I had made a promise to myself that when I got out, I wasn't necessarily going to run from conflict, but I was going to think safety first. I was going to think of my personal safety first because I wasn't going back to prison.
Right.
Since then, I organized some local and tenured community members here in Austin, Texas, and created my own organization. Since then, we've created a food access program that has renewed my spirit. We've rescued 8 million pounds of food in 3 years.
Wow.
We've delivered. We've contributed a little over 34,000 deliveries in 3 years. Mm-hmm. I've remained operable by gaining 33 of 45 grants that I write. Wow. We run a maternal mental health initiative that's funded by the University of Texas at Austin. We run a furniture replacement initiative because 65 to 70% of our participants and clients are justice involved. So our furniture replacement initiative, transforms that pain into purpose by restoring home again. We're one of the few. Yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Watson. I'm sorry. We're going to have to tune in after this brief moment because we have to take a commercial break.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the space.
Well, Mr. Hall has. Okay, we have returned. Mr. Watson. Can you hear me, Miko?
Yes.
Mr. Watson, may I ask you a question that I think that's really good of what you're doing, the pain to purpose. Can I ask you a question? What is your educational background?
So I grew up between New Orleans and Atlanta and moved to Austin when I was 11 years old. My father was committed to education, so I was a very, very good student. But I got to Baylor University at 18 and made all the errors that a young man would make once he's left his father's hand.
Yes, sir.
You know, so I went to Baylor University. I got done in 2009 amidst a bunch of conflict due to my justice involvement. And then I got back to Austin in 2010, and I snuck into a master's program at the University of Texas at Austin. I was an unofficial master's student. Since then, I have committed myself to leadership development programs. I've developed. I've been a part of city and county development programs to not only showcase my discipline and my growth, but also to be a student of others, give a listening ear to others. So, you know, I'd say that my education is still continuing, as Brother Fred and I are 2023 fellows with a New York City-based organization named Just Leadership USA.
Okay. Mr. Bennett, what is your organization name, Mr. Bennett? The organization you work for, what is the name of it? I can't hear him, Miko.
Let's make sure he got his mic on.
Yes. I work for a wonderful community-based organization that originates out of Orleans, Georgia, called I Hope Incorporated. And what I Hope does is is a community-based organization that works in conjunction with the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Development Disabilities, the Georgia Department of Corrections, and the Georgia Department of Community Supervision. So we back to the prison. We provide essential services to individuals that are suffering from mental health diagnoses, because over the years we all understand that the prisons have become the mental institutions. They utilize the prisons for mental purposes. So a lot of individuals are in there and they don't get access to services. We assist guys with a mental health diagnosis and a substance abuse diagnosis, and simply put, they have to have anywhere from 90 days to 18 months for us to assist them. And what we do is we even work with individuals that are impacted by the registry. And what I mean by that, you know, they used to call them with the SO, but we don't call them SOs anymore. We call them individuals that are impacted by the registry. So we have there's no barriers in terms of what we do. We assist them with education if they need. We assist them with housing, disability claims, employment. You know, we sit down and we conduct what we call a assessment on the guy, and we based our assessments on what he needs, because the individual is in charge of his. Most importantly, we connect them to these services and we walk them through the process, and we meet them at the prison gate when they come out. I just recently drove all the way to Brunswick, Georgia, to assist a guy that was released, and I brought him to his appointments, and I encouraged the brother that we're here to assist him. We're here to do something tremendous and impactful for his life. I did this work for 6.5 years in New York. In New York, we're so top heavy with guys that do the reentry work. And I decided to change my venue. I just started to come down south and help the brothers out down here, because, for my assessment of the prison system, it looks like a penal colony to me. I mean, it's surreal, some of the things that I've seen in just a week. So, we want to be there for the brothers, and we want to be a support network to let them know that prison is not an option once you're released, in that the resources are here, the individuals are lined up to assist you. A person just has to invest in his freedom.
Check this out. I love that. And I want each of you to answer this question for me. For you say that we are turning our pain into purpose. Fred, you start this off for me. How have you turned your pain into purpose? And in answering this question, I want you to share your story, but also how it is relevant now to the lives of those that you are helping. Fred, how are you turning your pain into purpose?
I turned my pain into purpose because I realized education is the equalizer. I realized that education equals band. So I went back to school and got my master's in social work so that I could help individuals. And my main purpose was to counsel. And so I felt that if I can go ahead and I could go to school, learn something different that I had never learned before, that I can be an example to other brothers, that if I could do it, they can do it. So currently after doing that, I was able to land a couple of jobs as the restorative justice leader moved a little bit, where I was able to use my criminal background, but also my education trumped my criminal background. So currently I work for Savannah Tech, and we go into 3 different prisons, and we train individuals in logistics, welding, and manufacturing. So it's called eliminating the skills gaps. And then we provide supportive service for them post-incarceration. Because what I found, just like me, I didn't have any skills. I had the wrong skills, but to give individuals a skill set, see, the system says they rehabilitate, and we talk about this all the time, Julius. Mm-hmm. I refute that, and I want to stop using that language. There's no rehabilitation in the system. How can you rehabilitate something that was never habilitated in the first place? So in the first place, having habilitative skills allows us to thrive in society, but I can only speak for myself. I didn't have any skills. Only skills I had was to know how to use a gun, steal cars, sell dope, rob, and all the things that were negative and detrimental to my life. So now I had to take that and revamp and then look at what was my poison and turn it into my medicine.
Awesome. Mr. Watson, same question. How have you turned your pain into purpose? And then how is it relevant in the lives of those that you work with?
That's a great question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So again, I had made a commitment to myself when I was locked up that I was going to fight. I was going to push. I was going as hard as I possibly could. But I was never going to forget all of the harm, all of the pain, all of the conflict that I had seen, that I had embraced. And so I'd come out to a painful situation, and I'd find myself dealing with the same outcomes that Brother Tony was talking about. Jobs saying I wasn't worthy enough, or hearing the no's and the you're not worth the chance on every corner. Deciding to work for myself, I made a commitment to keep that energy. And so we created programs and initiatives that were based off of my lived experience. We took participants from over 35 zip codes in the area so that I would remain busy, but busy with productive work. It got to the point where I felt comfortable in taking on clients. And so now we have about 17 clients that through case management, we stick in the fire with those brothers and sisters. Since I was a kid, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. And in chapter 14, titled Black Muslims, the brother tells Alex Haley of the process of rehabilitating the junkie by the brother who's reformed his spirit, merely giving the brother who's struggling, patience, understanding, and a friend. And he says that brother the afflicted brother will in turn save that reformed brother's life, because that reformed brother had saved his life. And so I model that with my clients. I model that with my participants, but I seek counsel. Brother Fred, I tell you, I can sit and listen, man. And so I've got a loving community around me that will tell me when I need to sharpen up my accountability. That'll tell me when I'm not focusing on the things that perhaps I should be, like myself. You know, I'll seek counsel of brothers that I know have endured through the struggle. So in turning my pain into purpose, I've alchemized that energy into something that's valuable, so that when I spend time with a brother, or when I spend time with a sister, even when I spend time with folks who are, who are not justice involved at all, they'll say something like, man, we can tell you got good character, or we can tell that you really care about what you do. We can tell you really care about people. And so I use that not to fuel my ego, but to fuel my mission. And so I keep a servant heart. I keep a servant heart. And the Most High God will reward a servant heart. And so, I remember when it was dark. I remember when it was full of doubt. The book of Proverbs speak that, even oppression will drive a wise man mad. And so I keep those things close. But like I was telling Brother Fred, I'll also listen to scholars and lecturers of our past, like Dr. Amos Wilson, like Dr. Joanna Kunjufu. And I'll let those brothers really speak peace and power into me, so I can share that with other brothers and other sisters, so that we can keep that cyclical nature of educational strength, of emotional intelligence. And so it turns into a true purpose, a purpose that's justified, a purpose that's grounded. They say, and I still carry a lot of trauma. I'm not gonna lie, Brother Julius, I still carry a lot of trauma, but trauma is only defenseless against the loving community. And so I pour and I lean into that loving community. We are one of the only Narcan providers in the state of Texas. And so I remember what it was like. I remember what it was like to be alone. I remember what it was like to be without. And so I never turn away a brother. I never press away a sister just because I don't feel like it, or because they don't look this way, or because they're going through this. I remember what it was like for me, and I keep that servant heart, which is how I turn pain into purpose, man, and it helps me heal.
Cool. So before I go to you, Tony, I want to read what one of our readers has said, listeners, Bernard White. He says, thank you for being the change and for showing our young black men that they too can rebuild a life that's torn down. Man, awesome for letting him know that, because that's something that we always need to remember. I love to say it this way. George Santayana, a famous American poet, once says, he who refuses to learn from history is forced to repeat its mistakes. And so I am glad that people are listening to the Mr. Greens and to the Mr. Watsons, and now also to you, Mr. Tony. So tell me, how has your pain been turned into purpose? You hear me, Tony?
You got to unmute your mic, Tony.
It was a transformation process that started for me while I was still behind the wall. I was always in a combative mode. I wanted to take on prison administrations. I wanted to challenge, the depravity, how they treated people, just the overall like disrespect, and just treating us less than humans. And I was identified by an individual that was incarcerated too, and he said that, brother, I like your spirit. I want you to come down to a group, and this particularly led me to a particular group while incarcerated that was led by a late criminal justice reformer called Eddie Ellis in New York City. It was called the Resurrection Study Group, and in this group, our challenge was to create a new African man. And the challenge to create the new African man was based on getting a social and criminal justice, knowledge and education to learn like the policies and the practices of why our prison system was predominantly 85%, Black males and Latino. Right. And I remember a question that I was asked. Eddie asked us what was the difference between a crackhead and a substance abuser. And we all came out with a myriad of answers, and Eddie gave us a one simple answer. He said the difference between a crackhead and a substance abuser was the color of your skin. Mm-hmm. And that was so impactful on me because at that particular time, we didn't see, Caucasian people in prison that much. They were only represented like 2 to 3% of the prison population.
Hold on, Tony. 1 second. 1 second, because we got to get ready to go to a break, pay a little bit of bills, and then you can come right back to your response. Hold up for just a moment. We'll be back with you. Always got to pay those bills. Okay, Tony, we back with you, bro. What did Eddie Ellis say to you?
Very important thing. So just picking up where I left off at, Ellis, he gave us a challenge to create a new African man, and we went on a journey where we were able to find our niche while in the prison system to help make productive change. But I learned one thing in the process, that I learned that the problems that affected us in the prison were the problems that we brought from the community. So it wasn't prison problems, it was community problems. We had to re-educate people in our community, and we had to reinvest in our community. No longer being liabilities in the community, but becoming assets by providing essential information and education to the people to build themselves up. So in the process of Eddie introducing us to another individual called Dr. Gary Mendez, the late Dr. Gary Mendez, and he was the founder of the National Trust for the Development of African American Men. And Gary challenged us that where we sat at, he said, make a difference, become an asset. So some of us came with, we came upon projects. I wrote the first position paper that was presented to New York State Legislative Caucus for the moratorium on prison construction. They were building prisons at an astronomical level, and we were saying, look, we need to stop prison building, and we need to reinvest in the individuals and their transition back out in the community. So I wrote the first position paper that was accepted by New York Senator Valmanette Montgomery, and I was brought into a legislative session, and the ball started rolling in terms of stopping prison construction and starting taking that money and invested it in the community. But I got released in 2011, and I transitioned into a case manager position after having obtained my associate's degree in liberal arts and sciences. What troubled me was that individuals who were returning back in the community from incarceration with no resources, no hope, and just abandoned. And they came out with anger because the system was failing them, and the system continuously failed them. And the work became more burdensome because you have to change the mindset. And the individual came out with the assumption that anybody that's connected with reentry was the people from the inside. So we have to work to change the mental process of the individuals. And some was success, some was failures. You know, it all depends on what the individual wanted to put into his freedom, you know, invest in his freedom. Okay. And after doing that for 6 years, you know, I got a little disenchanted because I said, you know what? We have a lot of individuals on the outside working with the brothers, but somebody needs to go behind the wall and work with the brothers to prepare them to the larger society. And that's when I decided to leave my employment up in New York City and transfer, you know, and transition down here to Georgia. And now I'm working out of Coastal State Prison, and I'm working with individuals who are transitioning back into the larger society. And I'm working to prepare and to provide them the essential services they need to make a successful transition.
I love that. And I'm talking about each of you turned your pain into purpose. As we get ready to turn the corner and conclude, I want each of you, Fred, I want you to start out first. What word of encouragement would you share with our listeners, whether it's somebody that's listening into the prison or the jail right now in Jessup, or whether it is a returning citizen who has come home but is struggling to get over that hump, or it may even be the community that the people are returning back to. You have the audience that you would like to speak to. Encourage them.
Well, to the people who have not been directly impacted, I will say to them that support a returning citizen, support somebody who is justice system impacted today, right now. There's a brother Bennett talked about hope. A brother named Bill Carruthers told me something that was significant that I hold dear, and that's what made me go hard the way that I go hard. You only have a small window to provide hope for somebody. To the people that's locked up, there is hope. We're showing you, we're displaying, we're being a shining example that God is no respecter of person. What he did for us, he'll do for you. And to those of you who have the resources to help someone, those of you who are family members and have been affected by proxy, support someone today. Those that feel like they can't do it. The fish, Chavez Couture, Deanna Hoskins with Just Leadership said something that was so profound. She said, a fish only grows to the size of a container. Jump out into the ocean.
I like that. I like that. Mr. Watson, you too, can you share an encouraging word? You choose the audience that you decide to speak with, but share an encouraging word as we conclude.
To the brother, to the sister that has been recently released. To the brother and the sister who's probably been out 5-10 years, but still feeling like things just not working for you. To the brother that can sleep at night. I encourage you to rethink yourself. You are so much more than your criminal history. You are so much more than the harm, the abuse, the doubt, the anxiety, and the hesitation. You are a whole person. Your lived experience is rich in value. You've just got to rethink of where you can apply it. Feel free to look at it like recovery and take one day at a time. If they say Rome wasn't built in one day, then you are not going to overcome all the barriers in one day or in 1 week. Take some time to nurture your heart. And in nurturing your heart, preserve the self-care that'll cause you to find that worth within. If you feel pain inside, take some creative outlets, like writing your thoughts down, finding somebody that'll give you a listening ear, taking walks and catching the sunset like I still do, and set your own pace of pushing forward, overcoming, or simply running through what's in your way. You are not the first to experience what you've experienced. You're not the 7th, the 8th, nor the 51st. But you've got to rethink yourself. You are so much more than that label felon. You are so much more than that label black. You are the children of original royalty. And you've got to return to that mindset, that kingdom mindset. And in taking it one day at a time, you will build blocks that will serve as stairways to your sustainability. I am a believer in the Most High God. And so you must give it up to the Most High God and repent for your sins and spend time in prayer. But let your repentance and your prayer reflect in your actions. And you will see that you will re-enter into society in the way that you wish to. You will see that you become exactly who you desire to amidst all conflict and struggle. And I say that to all who are recently released, all who are seasoned and have been on the outside for a long time. I say that to the brothers who are doing hard time, the sisters who are doing hard time inside. You must hold on. You must be strong. Be strong in the Lord. But you must rethink yourself. I appreciate the time again.
No problem. No problem. And what about you, Mr. Bennett? What do you want to say in closing? What word of encouragement to what category of people would you like to speak to as we come to a close?
To all the justice impacted people that are returning back into the community, and the masses that have been in the community for some time. I just want to encourage them and let them know that your dreams do not stop at the prison doors. Your dreams be expanded into the volume that you want to take it. I remember reading a quote by Malcolm X, and he was asked the question, what motivates you to do what you do? And Malcolm X responded by a simple, he said, having committed a crime is not the shame. He said, the shame is remaining the criminal. That's what Malcolm said. So I encourage guys that you don't have to transition back into the life you had before. You have a better life. You can have a better life. You can live your dreams. You can go to school like Fred and get your master's degree. Possibilities with education and everything. But I also encourage them to take 3 simple steps. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And once you embrace yourself in that, you can see the positivity and change. And that's what I leave to the people.
Oh, man. Start where you are, use what you got, and do what you can. Gentlemen, I am so grateful that you've decided to grace us with your presence and your knowledge and your story. Your story of how pain has been turned into purpose. Thank you again. We will have you back so we can get an update on what you got going on. Shouts out to Marie Jones, who had to leave us early, and as well as Julius Hall. Listen, I love to say it every time I come to an end. We may have started this thing out wrong, but we are now finishing strong. We want to invite you out May 17th on Wednesday for OAA Savannah, 8011 Waters Avenue. We are meeting together to talk about how fees and fines are impacting our returning citizens. The doors are open to you. Come on out, share your story. We look forward to seeing you. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Good night. Have a wonderful weekend.
Brother, take care, survivor.
Like that. Like that. Like that.
Peace and bless.
Like that. 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 Like that.